I gotta get some money, and there's no way to make it, so I'm gonna have to steal it, or even take it, or pilfer it, or filch it, or rob it, or swipe it, or finagle it, or abscond with it, or... It'll never not be funny. Okay, welcome to Teacup for One. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and welcome to another episode of me talking about Schmigadoon, where the wind, something. You know, I did not expect anyone to watch or care about my first review of Schmigadoon, but then apparently other people care about Schmigadoon, so I am here to do another review video. Now, in my first review, I covered episodes 1 and 2, and again, I didn't think anyone would care about that video, so I didn't bother reviewing the other episodes, and now the series is over. So here we are, and I'm going to review episodes 3 through to the finale. Now I'm just going to do a quick overview of what I thought of episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then just give my overall thoughts on how the show wrapped up, because it was a relatively short season. It was more of a mini-series than anything, and there was a lot that I liked, a lot that I wish they had done differently. And do I want a second season? Yes, abso-bleepin-lutely. But I'm getting way too ahead of myself. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Vagina is where the penis goes.
Ovaries make eggs for you and me.
Oh, can I even sing that on this channel? I don't know. But seriously, if you're a family watching this, please don't unsubscribe. But if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm really close to 1,000. Just make that happen for me. Thank you. Okay, let's go straight into it. Episode 3, Cross That Bridge. This episode delivered one of the funniest moments, at least for me, in a very niche-y musical theater nerd kind of way, and that was the outright parody of Soliloquy that Danny Bailey does at the very beginning of the episode. So he's convinced that Melissa's pregnant even though she can't get pregnant, and then he goes into this whole soliloquy about how everything will be okay if the baby's a boy, but if it's a frill-wearing, pink-loving girl, then he's going to be in trouble because he has to be responsible, and then just the best thing maybe in this entire series, is when he's listing off different synonyms for stealing, about how he has to get money, and he's either going to have to steal it or take it, because, like, just as somebody who has workshopped Soliloquy from Carousel in a couple of acting classes, I've wrapped my brain around why he says he's going to have to steal it or take it, and, like, what is the difference, and Schmigadoon is just laying the cards out on the table. Steal it, take it.
Those are the same thing.
That made me laugh far more than it should have, and I loved it. And the rest of the episode was okay. Like, I was sold on this show hardcore based on the first 2 episodes, and, like, I don't want to say that I feel about Schmigadoon the way Game of Thrones fans feel about the last season of Game of Thrones, but when I think of that meme that was circulating, like, of the horsey, saying that the well-drawn part of the horse was Game of Thrones at the beginning, and then, like, the awful sketch was Game of Thrones at the end. That's kind of how I felt about Schmigadoon. I think as the show progressed, it kind of started to go downhill, or kind of started to lose some focus, but I still enjoyed it thoroughly. And so, episode 3, Cross That Bridge, I thought that was a fun toe-tapping number. I thought all of the female ensemble did a great job with it. What's the other song in that episode? He's a Queer One. Okay, that song, just as a song, it wasn't as much of an enjoyable toe-tapper musically as the previous songs that we'd already heard in the series, but the sequence was hilarious. And Anne Herida is a national treasure. Love her. Oh, the other big significant moment in episode 3 was the opening scene, the flashback to when Josh and Melissa are at the wedding, and then she's doing that line dance, and then Josh won't get up and join her because he's too embarrassed. Like, that was the first moment in the series when I really started to clock into just how much of a jerk Josh could actually be, and it really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, it bothered me, especially because there was no resolution to that. This was at a point in the series where I wasn't confident if the two of them would end up together, or if I even wanted them together, and this really put a lot of doubts in my mind, which I think is kind of parallel to how Melissa felt at that point, so regardless. And just from a pure humor standpoint, like, I worked on a cruise ship very briefly and had to suffer my way through a lot of line dances. So just hearing that parody of kind of the Cupid Shuffle and kind of, well, every line dance song, that made me very happy as well. Episode 4, Suddenly. Okay, now that I've seen the entire series from start to finish and I kind of have a perspective on how the entire thing played out, I really think that this could have been episode 3, if not episode 2, because once we introduce Doc Lopez and Emma, that's when the main part of the story and like the heart of the story really starts to pick up. And I loved everything to do with Danny Bailey and with Betsy, because I think those characters were absolutely hilarious. But now seeing where the series went, I think they kind of slowed things down just for unnecessary jokes. And I don't really care because they were unnecessary jokes that I thought were hilarious. But the heart of the show really landed when we met those two characters, because then we got this beautiful, albeit kind of rushed, character arc from Doc Lopez from the start of the episode to the end, and everything to do with Emma I thought was handled brilliantly. And you know what? Like, Ariana DeBose needs to be in everything. And we're kind of at a point where she's starting to be in everything, and I'm okay with that. I'm like, bring on West Side Story. One of the moments that made me laugh the most in episode 4 was the school song With All of Your Heart. The song itself was fine, but my favorite thing at the very end was just how all of them started laughing kind of uncomfortably, and then Josh just said, why are they laughing? Nothing even remotely funny just happened. Because, okay, this is something that Schmigadoon does so well. It calls out and acknowledges all of these movie musical tropes that you know, but you don't know you know. I distinctly remember watching all of these musicals that had kids, just like growing up myself as a kid, and then seeing them break out into laughter after doing a song and dance number and thinking, why are they laughing? Like, they do it in Annie a lot. So I very much appreciated that Schmigadoon called that trope out, because it's always kind of low-key bothered me. I know why it's there, but it's also like, So thank you, Schmigadoon. Okay, episode 5, Tribulation. This is the episode that, I appreciate it, and there are some things that it does incredibly well. While at the same time, I think a lot of the weaknesses in the series really made themselves known and apparent in this episode. Okay, so, example, Jane Krakowski. When they were doing all the promotions for Schmigadoon, Jane Krakowski was one of the top billed names among a very impressive ensemble cast. But, we're like near the end of the series. This is episode 5, and I'd forgotten that Jane Krakowski was involved in this show at all. And then when she actually appeared, her character was just kind of a drop in the bucket. She was a cameo, and she didn't really contribute all that much to the plot or to the series. She drove Melissa into a field and then left, and that was it. Like, what she did in the show wasn't that much. The only person who did less was Martin Short and that leprechaun. Okay, but Jane Krakowski, Countess, character arc or lack thereof aside, clearly the big standout number in this episode is meant to be Kristen Chenoweth's showcase, Tribulation. Now, musically, it's a very, very obvious Music Man parody. It's supposed to be Trouble in River City, and, we all love a patter song. Everyone loves a patter song. When I was first watching it, I felt a little underwhelmed because the parody or the satire wasn't as clever as some of the other ones that had come previously, and I'd been waiting the entire series for the big Kristen Chenoweth number, and I don't know, I didn't think it would be a patter song. Kristen Chenoweth is one of those people that, can do pretty much anything, and so, I don't know, I thought that there would be something showcasing her voice a little bit more. But on the flip side of that, we already know what Kristen Chenoweth can do in terms of her range and in terms of, her Glinda-style singing. So it was nice to see that side of her as a performer. It was nice seeing her just embrace a character song and embrace a patter song. So that's something that I appreciate. Like, my big thing with this number is that on my first viewing, I didn't think it was anything special. Then I realized that the entire thing, start to finish, was one shot. And I've watched this number since multiple times, and I am just in awe of how incredible everything is, just in terms of the choreography with the cast, coinciding with the choreography of the Steadicam operator. Like, that number is outstanding from a purely technical standpoint. But then it also begs the question, yes, they did this really cool technical feat, but does that make it a good number? Because I didn't realize what I was watching the first time I was watching it. I was just paying attention to the song and to the dramatic action and thinking, this is okay. And it wasn't until after, when I realized this is one shot, that like the pretentious side of my brain opened up and got really excited and just thought, oh my gosh, look at the choreography. This is outstanding. So, I don't know, it just begs the question, like, does that make it good? Yes? I don't know. Weigh in your thoughts. Episode 6. Oh, also, obviously, there's going to be spoilers here. Episode 6, How We Change. So by the time we hit episode 6, all like Schmigadoon's secrets are out in the open. The mayor has come out in front of the entire town. Emma has admitted to Dr. Josh Skinner that she's actually Carson's mom. Carson heard her, so now we've got some family drama there. And of course, we are waiting with bated breath to see if Josh and Melissa will actually end up together. And all of these things need to be resolved in under half an hour. Somehow. Oh, not to mention the fact that Mildred Layton is trying to overthrow Aloysius Manlove as mayor and then, like, run the town herself. Again, all of this is supposed to be tied up in 30 minutes. And episode 5, I just want to make a point, ends with Josh and Melissa both finding the hearts with their names engraved into them. And so you go into episode 6 almost positive that the two of them have reached a point where they realize that they do love each other and they want to be together. And the entire series has kind of been built on the idea of these two hearts and exchanging them with one another. In episode 6, Mrs. Lopez even says, "You only have one heart. Are you sure you want to give it to my son?" And I've watched this episode probably 3 times now. And yes, even though Josh and Melissa do end up together, I am almost positive there is no moment where they actually give those hearts back to each other. Okay? And I don't know. Maybe it would have been too obvious and too on the nose, but episode 5 ended with them finding their hearts. There was just something that felt so incomplete about them not making that exchange. Because it's the constant, Chekhov mentality. I think it was Chekhov. I didn't do the research. I'm just talking here. It's like the Chekhov mentality. If there is a gun on stage in Act 1, it has to go off in Act 3. Those hearts were one of the very first things that were established in this series. And they keep coming back to them, but then we don't actually see the exchange happen between Josh and Melissa. They were like the MacGuffin, the thing that was endowed to represent their relationship, and nothing came out of it. Unless, of course, I looked at my phone at the wrong moment and missed the shot where they traded hearts, but I don't think I did. And if I did, disregard everything I just said. Okay, but instead of getting into my review for episode 6, I think I'm just going to go straight into my thoughts on the series overall. So, in the end, the big standouts for me were Cecily Strong and Keegan Michael Key. I thought just those two as actors had beautiful chemistry. I loved both of their characters, even though Josh and some of his life choices very much annoyed me, but definitely a highlight for me in every episode, and really the series overall, were all of the flashbacks that we got at the beginning of every episode, showing us just Josh and Melissa existing in their normal life before Schmigadoon. Like, all of those moments were so funny and so adorable. Like, the one that comes to mind right now is Doggy Dog versus Dog Eat Dog. Those were just so necessary to giving us a little bit of insight into what was being fought for with their relationship. Or in the case of that wedding scene, why Melissa would consider leaving him, because Josh was definitely kind of a jerk. But with that said, I also appreciated that as the series went on, they started to acknowledge some of Melissa's flaws. Because in the first 2 to 3 episodes, I really felt like they were, turning Josh into this awful person that Melissa had no reason to want to be with. But by the time we got to episode 5, I thought it was incredibly effective having the Countess point out that Melissa was being the bad guy, saying, you're like ruining my life and stealing my fiance. That's called being the bad guy. And as a viewer, You know, I think Melissa's the character that we were meant to identify with, so it was very eye-opening having that outside voice saying, you're not as perfect as you think you are. Because I was watching the entire series rooting for Melissa and then just really not liking Josh, but it took that acknowledgement for me to think, oh, this is a two-side street. Like, Melissa is almost as flawed as Josh. I still think they made Josh a little too much of a jerk, but neither here nor there. So for Schmigadoon as a whole, overall, I think I loved the concept more than I liked the execution of the concept. Every episode delivered something that was memorable or enjoyable or just like jaw-droppingly technically incredible. Tribulation. But in the end, I just wanted more. And I'm not saying that in one of those cute ways like, oh my gosh, it was so good, I wanted more. No, I literally wanted and needed more. I think the show suffered by having just a 30-minute runtime, whereas every one of these episodes could have easily been 45 to 60 minutes, and they would have allowed the show to flesh out all of these incredible characters, but they didn't, and so the entire thing felt kind of disjointed and rushed. And I don't know what their production schedule was like, but just from an outside eye, it started to feel like all of those A-list actors were never actually shooting at the same time. It really felt like they were being shoehorned in for a very isolated storyline that was just revolving around their characters, and then those would end without any resolution, and then we would move on to the next cameo appearance in the next episode. And because of that, there was really no real reason to include the Danny Bailey and the Betsy storyline because they didn't turn into anything. And I'm not saying that I wanted those things cut because, like I said, those were standouts for me in the entire series, but I would have liked to see those characters have some kind of resolution aside from Danny just accosting Josh in the woods and punching him. And also, I wanted answers that the show didn't give me. The Martin Short leprechaun didn't come back and give us any further insight into why the town exists, so I stand by what I said in my last episode. I am not pro-leprechaun when it comes to the world of Schmigadoon. But, you know, even Mildred Layton has that moment where she says that her granddaddy founded Schmigadoon with the hope that they won't find us here, or something to that effect. And I just really wanted them to delve a little bit into the history of Schmigadoon, or just give us a hint about why this place exists, but nothing. Although I will say I am very happy that they went the Pleasantville route like I had hoped they would with this series, just in terms of Josh and Melissa encouraging the people of Schmigadoon to, you know, embrace change and be themselves. But it kind of only had an effective payoff with the mayor and with Emma. And even that felt a little bit rushed. You know, I was really hoping and feeling like the show was going down a road where they were going to tell us that all the citizens of Schmigadoon were also from the real world who found themselves trapped because they had not found true love. Because really, with the exception of Doc Lopez's parents, nobody in Schmigadoon really had true love. And the entire show was kind of building towards the realization that true love exists in many forms. You know, they were kind of pulling of Frozen, especially in the last episode. Like I said, the only two characters aside from Josh and Melissa that really had a nice, fully fleshed out character arc were Mayor Aloysius Menlove and Emma. And in both of those cases, I think those characters' stories resolved in a way where, like Frozen, they showed us different forms that true love can take. So even after the mayor comes out as gay, it doesn't diminish any of the love that he had for his wife. It just acknowledges that he didn't have bedroom love for her, which she was already well aware of. And in the case of Emma, it's showing us that true love can exist in that beautiful parental way once she just admits to Carson and everyone else that she's actually his mom and not his sister. I would have loved to see Emma and the mayor and their loved ones cross the bridge as well, with the whole idea being that they had lost themselves in Schmigadoon and given into the fantasy world until they were ready to accept who they were and who they loved and were ready to move back into reality. But it could still potentially go there, because as critical and nitpicky as I'm being of Schmigadoon, I did really love the show, and I want to see it come back, and I would love to have some of those questions answered, and I hope that it's been a big enough hit that they can be given a little bit more money and a little bit more time to just pay the attention that this show and that these characters deserve. And I already love the fan theories that are circulating on the internet that if we do get a season 2, it's going to move into the next era of musical theater, you know, the 60s and the 70s, which could go hand in hand with the characters of Schmigadoon kind of breaking out of the molds and the norms that were established in the 40s and 50s musicals. So, you know, giving more agency to the female characters or just allowing more liberation overall. And it's kind of hinted at very indirectly just by merit of the fact that musically, the final number in Schmigadoon doesn't sound like a Rodgers and Hammerstein song. It sounds more like something from Godspell or from Hair or from that era. So who knows, if we get season 2 of Schmigadoon, we might get more of like a hippie rock vibe. I need to do more research. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I want more Schmigadoon. And I think the people do too. So here's hoping, fingers are crossed, that it happens. But for now, friends, this concludes yet another episode of Teacup for One. Now, let me know in the comment section down below, how did you feel about Schmigadoon? Were you satisfied with how the entire series wrapped up? And would you like me to do more videos about Schmigadoon? Because I'm very tempted to rank all of the songs from my most favorite to my least favorite, but, you know, let me know what you think. And if you want to be the first to know when I release more videos about Schmigadoon or about movies, Disney, Shakespeare, cats, it can kind of be anything on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't subscribed already. If you haven't subscribed already, it is so easy. All you have to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me again today, everyone. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's the T cup for one. Go away.